I still remember the way they looked at him. Like he didn't belong. I had been sitting in the hotel lobby, waiting for my coffee order, when I first saw him. A tall, well-dressed black man, with a confident walk and an air of quiet power. He wore a sharp navy suit, gold cufflinks that caught the light, and a watch that probably cost more than my rent. He didn't need to say a word. You could tell he was somebody. But the hotel staff didn't see that. I noticed the way the receptionist, a young white woman with a stiff smile, glanced at him, then at the security guard nearby, like she had already decided he didn't belong here. He placed his card on the counter. "I have a reservation, James Carter." Her smile faltered. She hesitated. Then, in the most condescending tone I had ever heard, she said, "Are you sure you're in the right place?" My stomach tightened. James's expression remained calm, but I saw the slight clench of his jaw. "Yes," he said simply. She took his card and typed something into the computer. Her eyes flickered with something. Satisfaction. "I'm sorry, but it looks like there's been an issue with your booking," she said. "We won't be able to accommodate you tonight." James frowned. "What do you mean? I booked a suite weeks ago." She shrugged. "The system canceled it. Nothing I can do." Lies. I could see it in her face. She had already decided he wasn't staying here. "Then I'll book another room," he said, pulling out his phone. Her fake smile returned. "Unfortunately, we're fully booked." James exhaled slowly. "I see." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just stood there for a moment, staring at her. She shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "I'll take my business elsewhere," he finally said, his voice steady. Then he turned and walked out. I should have looked away, gone about my day. But something about it stayed with me. I had no idea that, months later, I would witness something that would shock the entire hotel. Because James Carter would return. And this time, he wouldn't be looking for a room. He would be the new owner. It was a normal Tuesday morning when the buzz started. I had just settled into the hotel's lounge sipping my coffee when the employees began to whisper among themselves. I could feel the tension building in the air, thick and almost electric. Something was happening, but no one would say what. I overheard snippets of conversation. "Did you hear? There's a meeting today, with the new owner." The new owner? I didn't think much of it at first. But then I heard a name that sent chills down my spine. James Carter. It took me a moment to process. The same James Carter, the man they had kicked out months ago. I looked around, half expecting to see him walking in with the same quiet confidence I had witnessed before. But this time, the atmosphere was different. People weren't looking at him with disdain anymore. They were nervous. I saw him enter the lobby, flanked by two serious-looking men in suits. He walked straight to the receptionist's desk, her face drained of color. "Mr. Carter, I didn't expect to see you again," she stammered. James's gaze was cold. "I'm sure you didn't, but I'm here for business today." She fumbled for her words. What business?" "The same business you tried to deny me last time," he said, his voice calm but full of power. My heart raced. I could feel the tension in the room. James was no longer the man they had humiliated. He wasn't just a guest anymore, he was in control. "I think you know exactly what I'm talking about," he continued. "I'm here to take over this hotel. I just bought it." The receptionist blinked, her hands trembling. "What? You're the new owner?" James gave a slight nod. "Yes, I am." Her face fell as the weight of his words sank in. She looked around the room, probably hoping someone would come to her rescue, but there was nothing. No one could save her now. He turned to the rest of the staff. "I'll be in my office. If you want to keep your jobs, I suggest you start by being a little more respectful." The room was silent. I couldn't help but stare. The man who had been humiliated, dismissed, and treated like he didn't belong was now the one in charge. And it wasn't just his wealth that had changed everything, it was his determination, his resolve. The way he had handled the entire situation with such grace, while they had shown him nothing but disdain. I could feel my admiration for him growing. He had gone from being kicked out of this place to owning it, and nothing could stop him now. The next few days at the hotel were a whirlwind. The staff, who had once strutted around with a sense of superiority, were suddenly on edge. I could see them walking around, heads down, working double time to prove themselves worthy of their positions. But I could also see the subtle tension. They had no idea what James was capable of or what he might do next. I overheard the receptionist talking to one of the other staff members. "I don't know how to handle this. He's got power, you know. He's not the kind of person you mess with." There was fear in her voice, fear I hadn't heard before. As for James, he was everywhere. He walked through the hotel daily, inspecting everything with meticulous attention. It was clear he wasn't just here to collect a paycheck. He was going to transform this place. I watched him in action. He fired some of the staff, not for minor mistakes, but for the way they had disrespected him. The ones who had been rude to him when he first arrived, the ones who had made assumptions about his status. But he didn't do it without reason. Those he fired were replaced by new, hard-working employees, some of whom had been out of work for months. And in every interview he conducted, James was fair, respectful, and focused. He wasn't the angry man looking for revenge, he was the man with a vision. A few days after the takeover, James invited the remaining staff to a meeting. Everyone was nervous, unsure of what to expect. I had a front row seat, having been invited as a guest to witness the changes firsthand. The room was filled with tension, but James remained calm, collected. He stood at the front, addressing everyone with quiet authority. "First, let me say this. I didn't come here to settle scores," he began, his voice steady but filled with strength. "I came here because I know what this hotel could be. I know what it should be." There was a pause as everyone took in his words. "I won't tolerate any form of discrimination, disrespect, or incompetence," he continued, his gaze sweeping across the room. "But I will reward hard work, I will reward loyalty, and I will make this place a destination not just for guests, but for the people who work here." You could feel the shift in the room. People sat up straighter, eyes focused. He wasn't just talking about business, he was talking about people. In that moment, I saw something change in the staff's eyes. They weren't looking at James with disdain anymore, they were looking at him with respect. Some were even nodding in agreement, a few smiling shyly. This wasn't just about ownership, this was about leadership. James had taken a hotel that had once been filled with arrogance and broken dreams, and he was turning it into something bigger. Something better. And with every move he made, I couldn't help but think, this is just the beginning. James didn't waste any time. The hotel, once filled with poor customer service and a reputation for treating its guests poorly, began to change overnight. He brought in experts, changed the decor, revamped the menu at the restaurant, and even installed a new booking system. Everything was meticulously thought out. It was clear, this wasn't just a hotel renovation, this was a complete rebranding. The employees who had stuck around began to take pride in their work again. James had given them a sense of purpose, a feeling that they were part of something greater than themselves. But it wasn't just about work. It was the way he made people feel. He knew the names of everyone who worked there. Everyone. He took the time to ask about their families, their dreams. He understood what made each person tick, and he used that knowledge to bring out their best. I had a front row seat to this transformation. I often came to visit, my eyes wide with admiration as I saw him lead with integrity, wisdom, and humility. One afternoon, I bumped into him in the lobby. He was on his way out for a meeting, but he stopped when he saw me. "I wanted to thank you for not turning your back on me that day," he said, his voice soft but filled with sincerity. I blinked, taken aback. "What do you mean?" "You saw the way I was treated when I first came here, and you didn't look away. You didn't ignore me." His eyes met mine with a quiet intensity. "That meant something. You made me feel like I belonged." My heart fluttered. I hadn't done anything extraordinary, just what anyone should do when faced with injustice. But to him, it had meant the world. "I'm glad I did," I said, a smile tugging at my lips. "I don't forget people who show me kindness," he replied, then nodded toward the front desk. "And I'll make sure this hotel never forgets the value of respect either." There was something so powerful in his words. He wasn't just running a business, he was changing a culture. As weeks went by, the changes started to show. The guests who came in no longer whispered about poor service or complaints about rude staff. Instead, they raved about the hotel. "Best stay we've ever had. The staff is so friendly. It feels like family here." James Carter has truly turned this place around. The reviews came pouring in, and the hotel's name started to spread. No longer just an upscale spot for the rich, the hotel became a beacon of change in the industry. The walls once filled with arrogance and prejudice now stood tall as a symbol of inclusion and excellence. One evening, I watched James as he stood at the hotel's grand entrance, greeting guests with a smile that could light up a room. He spoke to them like they were his guests at home, not just customers paying for a service. And it wasn't just his guests who were falling in love with the new hotel. The staff had become loyal to him in a way I had never seen before. They admired his fairness, his vision, and the way he led by example. Even the receptionist, the same one who had turned him away that first day, approached him with newfound respect. "Mr. Carter," she said shyly, "I just wanted to say thank you for everything." James smiled warmly. "Thank you for sticking with me," he said. "I know this place has had its challenges, but you're all the reason it's turning around." And as the days passed, I saw something even more beautiful happening. The community began to rally behind him. Local businesses, entrepreneurs, and organizations wanted to work with James. They wanted to be part of the change he was bringing to the city. He wasn't just a hotel owner now. He was a leader. A man who had taken everything the world had thrown at him and turned it into something good, something worthy. The transformation of the hotel wasn't just about fancy renovations or new furniture. It was the shift in culture that reverberated throughout the entire city. James Carter had become a symbol of hope, a story of perseverance and success against the odds. As the hotel's reputation grew, so did its impact. People started visiting the hotel, not just because of its luxury, but because it stood for something more. The guests who came weren't just looking for a place to stay. They were looking for a place where they could see real change, where they could witness someone who refused to let injustice define his life. I watched as James attended community events, spoke at local schools, and invested in local businesses. He didn't just take over a hotel. He took over the hearts of everyone around him. One day, I joined him for a lunch at a nearby cafe, and as we sat there, the owner came over to thank him. "James, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to keep my restaurant open. Your support has meant everything to me." James nodded, his expression humble. "It's the community that supports me. If I can help lift someone else up, I will." The restaurant owner smiled and walked away, but I couldn't help but notice how his words had a ripple effect. People began to talk about James' influence, not just as a businessman, but as a community leader who gave back when others might have turned their backs. It wasn't long before other hotel owners in the area started taking notes. They realized that it wasn't just about the bottom line. It was about treating people with dignity, respecting their worth, and giving back to the community that helped support you. But it wasn't always easy for James. As his success grew, so did the challenges. People who had once dismissed him as just another rich guy were now questioning his methods. Some were even trying to discredit him, saying that his changes were nothing more than a publicity stunt. But James wasn't bothered. He continued to lead with grace, answering his critics with action instead of words. He didn't need to defend himself. The hotel's success and the love he had earned from his staff and guests spoke louder than any critic ever could. It was during one of the hotel's anniversary celebrations that everything came full circle. The hotel had been open for a year now, and the change was undeniable. Guests packed the ballroom to celebrate, and there was a buzz in the air, an excitement that came from the feeling that something special was happening. James stood at the podium, ready to give a speech. I stood at the back of the room, watching him with pride. "I could stand here and talk about all the money we've made, or all the accolades we've received," he began, his voice steady and clear. "But the truth is, this isn't about me. It never was. This hotel isn't about one man's success, it's about all of us, every single person who helped make this dream a reality." His gaze swept across the room. This hotel was built on respect, on community, and on the idea that everyone deserves a chance. He paused, his eyes lingering for a moment. "I'm just one man. But if we can all work together, we can build something even bigger than this hotel. A world where we don't judge people based on where they come from, the color of their skin, or how they dress. A world where we lift each other up, not tear each other down. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. As he spoke, I realized just how far he had come, from the man who had been humiliated at this very hotel, to the man who had now changed everything. He had shown all of us that true power wasn't in money or status. It was in your ability to rise above adversity, to remain true to yourself even when the world told you you didn't belong. James Carter wasn't just the new owner of a hotel. He was the new owner of a legacy. And as I looked around at the smiling faces in the room, I knew he would continue to inspire others for years to come. His story was a reminder that no matter what you face, no matter how many times the world knocks you down, you can rise up, stronger, wiser, and ready to prove that you belong. I hope you enjoyed this story of resilience and triumph. If this story inspired you, please don't forget to like, comment, and share. And make sure to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Thank you for being part of this journey.